hormones. It's a term that gets thrown around a lot, especially as we get older, but how often do we actually stop to think about what's really going on with our hormones or the function they serve in our body? And as much as we make jokes about being hormonal, how do you actually know whether your hormones are out of whack? And even if you suspect there's something going on, what are you supposed to do about it? The truth is that for women over 40, hormones are a big deal. And yet, most of us don't really know all that much about them, what they do, or how to even recognize the signs that something is wrong. And so today, we're going to talk about it. We're taking a deep dive into all things hormones, and specifically the big signs of hormonal imbalance that you may have missed, along with what you can actually do about it.
Welcome to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Ruth Sukup, and here we'll talk about everything from the science of weight loss to practical tips for making your health a priority in the midst of a busy life. It's a little bit nerdy, a little bit funny, and a little bit revolutionary. So buckle up, friend, because it's about to get real.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast. Once again, my name is Ruth Sukup, and I'm the founder of Thinlicious and the creator of the Thin Adapted System, as well as the New York Times bestselling author of 7 books. And if this is your first time listening, then I guess the first thing you should probably know is that I'm a 46-year-old woman who understands all too well what it is like to struggle with both your health and your weight, because I too struggled for a very long time. And if you want to hear more about my journey, you can go back and listen to the very first episode of this podcast. It's called The Simple Changes I Made to Lose 40 Pounds and Actually Keep It Off. And it will give you a really good overview of where I've been and how I got to here. Because honestly, I was so desperate to fix that piece of my life, the weight gain piece, that I had no idea how hormones played such a huge role in not only my weight struggles, but in my health and well-being overall. And if you're listening to this podcast, it's probably because you too are struggling or wanting to get healthy or just wondering if your body has betrayed you or wondering if there's anything that you can do to just be normal again. And believe me, I get it. Because for me, it wasn't until I decided to do some real research into the science of weight loss and into why we gain weight in the first place that I started to find some answers that changed everything for me. And one of the biggest revelations for me was learning about hormones. Hormones are these chemical messengers that control so many processes in our body. And when they get out of whack, it has this huge impact on our health and well-being. As women, especially, we experience so many hormonal changes throughout our lives, right? From puberty to pregnancy to menopause. So it's pretty common for us to experience hormonal imbalances at some point, and sometimes at many points of our lives. And honestly, as I studied and I researched, all of this stuff that I discovered shocked me because it's so different from everything that we've been told. Because it turns out the thing that regulates our weight isn't counting calories, right? It's hormones. And so for me, as I started to change the way that I ate in a way that restored balance to my hormones and reversed insulin resistance, the weight I tried so hard to lose just started to come off without dieting, without drugs, and without making myself miserable. I lost 40 pounds in 6 months, and for the first time ever, I didn't gain it all back, and I've easily maintained that weight loss for years now. And let me tell you, after struggling with this for so long, it felt and still does feel like freedom in my life. And it's why I'm so freaking passionate about this work. It's why I started Thinlicious. It's why I created this podcast, because I can't help but want to share it and to help other women over 40 like me create freedom in your lives by transforming your health. I like to think of it as starting a health revolution. And that's really everything that we talk about on this podcast, right? It's the freedom to feel your best, the freedom to not be controlled by food addictions ever again, the freedom to confidently pursue all your big goals and dreams because your health and your weight issues are no longer holding you back. And if that gets you excited, then you probably will like it here because we are health rebels. We are not afraid to question the status quo. We're not afraid to do things differently. We're not afraid to talk about the hard things because we're not looking for a quick fix, but a real sustainable lifestyle change that will actually work for the long haul. And if that's your goal, then you're in the right place. And by the way, if you are brand new to this podcast and to Thinlicious in general, but you want to learn more about how we can help you lose weight and get healthy for life, then I would love to invite you to join me for my next free workshop. If you've never joined me for a live workshop, you should know they're really fun. They're always jam-packed with super valuable info. You'll want to take so many notes. Plus, you can ask questions and you can get any answers that you need in real time. So to get all the info about the workshop and get signed up, just go to thinlicious.com/workshop. Once again, that URL is thinlicious.com/workshop. So hopefully I'll see you there. But in the meantime, today, I want to just dive really deep into a topic that oh gosh, it's so important for all of us, especially as we get older, but one that even in this day and age still gets overlooked and ignored and totally misunderstood. Hormones, and specifically hormonal imbalance. So first things first, what exactly are hormones? Well, hormones are basically chemical messengers that are produced by different glands in your body, and they travel through your bloodstream to different tissues and organs where they help to regulate all sorts of different processes, from metabolism to growth to fertility to mood and so much more. They are literally what controls and regulates pretty much everything that happens in your body. And because of this, it's pretty easy to see why it's so important to have a healthy hormonal system. When your hormones are working the way that they're supposed to, everything in your body is in balance and working together the way that it should. You have energy and vitality. Your metabolism is functioning properly. You're able to sleep well. Your skin looks good. Your digestion is working the way that it should, and you feel good. And when your hormones are out of whack, the exact opposite is true. You feel tired and sluggish. You have a hard time losing weight. Your skin breaks out. You have trouble sleeping, and you just don't feel like yourself. And the reality is that most of us are walking around with imbalanced hormones, and we don't even realize it. We think that all of these symptoms are just a normal part of getting older, or that they're just something that we have to deal with. We don't realize that there are things that we can actually do to heal our hormones and get our bodies back in balance. And that's really what I want to dive into deeper today. I want to talk about some of the most common signs that your hormones might be out of whack and what you can actually do about it. But before we get into that, I think it's also important to understand a little bit about how your hormones actually work and what can cause them to get out of balance in the first place. So, like I said, your hormones are produced by different glands in your body, right? And they travel through your bloodstream to different tissues and organs where they help to regulate all these different processes. And the way this works is that your hormones are all interconnected in what's known as the endocrine system. That means that they all work together in this very delicate balance. And it's almost like a web of hormones. So when one hormone is out of whack, it can throw the whole system off. And there's a lot of things that can cause this delicate balance to get thrown off. So things like stress or poor diet or lack of sleep, even environmental toxins can all have a big impact on your hormones. And for women, things like pregnancy and childbirth and menopause also have a big impact. In fact, women's hormones are constantly changing, and that's why we're so much more likely to have issues with hormonal imbalances than men are. And the other thing that's important to understand is that when your hormones are out of balance, it can have a pretty big impact on your health in a lot of different ways. Because like I said, your hormones regulate pretty much everything in your body. So when they're not working the way that they're supposed to, it causes all sorts of problems, from weight gain to fatigue to depression and anxiety. And those are just a few examples, right? Hormonal imbalance can affect everything from your skin to your digestion to your libido. Like, sounds great, right? And just in case you're curious about what kind of hormonal imbalances are most common for women over 40, they typically include the following. Number one, thyroid dysfunction, specifically hypothyroidism, where the thyroid doesn't produce enough hormones, which can lead to symptoms like fatigue, weight gain, and depression. Number two, insulin resistance, which is really a precursor to type 2 diabetes. It affects how the body processes sugar and can result in significant weight gain and energy dips. And the scary news is that over 85% of the American population has some level of insulin resistance. It's very, very common. Number three is cortisol imbalance, which is also a big one, and that's often related to chronic stress. Elevated cortisol levels can wreak havoc on your body, causing everything from poor sleep to increased abdominal fat. And additionally, number four, there are sex hormone imbalances, such as low estrogen, progesterone, or even testosterone, yes, even in women, that can seriously impact your mood, energy levels, and even cognitive function. And while there are other hormones that impact us as well, things like leptin and ghrelin. Those four tend to be the biggies. But it's important to understand too that all of our hormones are part of this interconnected network, right? The endocrine system, which means they're all working together. And so, again, that means that if one of your hormones is out of whack, then all of the others will likely be disrupted as well. And that's why hormonal balance is so important. So, with that in mind, let's talk about some of the most common signs to look out for that your hormones might be out of whack. The first and probably most obvious sign that your hormones might be out of balance is that you're struggling to lose weight, even when you're doing all the right things. And this is especially true if you're a woman over 40, because that's when our hormones really start to change and it has a big impact on our ability to lose weight. But the reality is that when your hormones are out of balance, it can make it nearly impossible to lose weight. Hormones like insulin, cortisol, and thyroid play crucial roles in how your body stores and uses fat. Insulin, for example, helps to regulate your blood sugar levels, but when it's consistently high, it promotes fat storage, right? When your insulin is always high, it tells your body, I need to cling to fat. Elevated cortisol, which is usually a result of stress, also leads to weight gain, especially in the abdominal area. And again, those two things are working together. Your cortisol affects your insulin affects your cortisol. So it's like this vicious cycle. On the flip side, if your thyroid hormones are low, your metabolism slows way down, and that makes it way harder to burn calories, right? So suddenly you're finding it hard to manage your weight because your hormones are basically staging a rebellion. Essentially, all of your hormones play a very, very big role and a very key role in regulating your metabolism and how your body stores and burns fat. And when your hormones are not working the way that they're supposed to, it basically turns your metabolism off, right? It just makes it almost impossible for your body to burn fat no matter how few calories you're eating or no matter how much you're exercising. In fact, eating too few calories and exercising too much makes the problem even worse because it throws your hormones even further out of whack because it's putting them into crisis. So if you have been struggling to lose weight and it feels like an uphill battle, even though you're doing all the right things, then there's a very, very good chance that your hormones are out of whack. The second sign that your hormones might be out of whack is that you're constantly tired and fatigued no matter how much sleep you get. And this is a big one too, right? Because so many of us just think that fatigue is a normal part of our busy modern lives. And maybe in some ways it is. But so we think that it's just something that we have to deal with. But the reality is that if you're feeling tired and fatigued all the time, it is probably a big sign that something is not right with your hormones. Hormonal imbalances can lead to relentless fatigue for a number of different reasons. For example, imbalances in thyroid hormones can slow down your metabolism, which leaves you feeling sluggish and just tired all the time, right? You just feel drained all the time. Or if your cortisol levels are too high or too low, your body's natural energy rhythms get disrupted, making it hard to feel rested no matter how much sleep you get. Likewise, low levels of progesterone and estrogen can also contribute to this sense of exhaustion, affecting your mood and your energy levels. So if you're constantly tired despite your best efforts, it might not just be life grinding you down, it could be your hormones crying out for attention. All in all, your hormones play a huge role in energy levels, right? And also in your sleep-wake cycle. When those hormones get out of whack, it has a big impact on both of those things. It makes it hard for you to get a good night's sleep, and it also causes you to feel tired and fatigued throughout the day. So, if you are struggling with fatigue and it feels like you can never get enough sleep, no matter what you try, then it's a big sign that you've got a hormonal imbalance. The third sign that your hormones might be out of whack is that you're experiencing brain fog and memory loss. And this is something that a lot of us just write off, again, as a normal part of being older, but it's not. It is a sign that something is not right with your hormones. And that's because your hormones play a big role in regulating your brain function and your cognitive abilities. And so when your hormones are out of balance, it has a big impact on things like memory and focus and mental clarity. It can cause you to experience brain fog, which is that feeling of just not being able to think clearly or to remember things. So if you are struggling with brain fog and memory loss, and it feels like your brain's just not as sharp as it used to be, right? You just can't think clearly. That is another big sign that your hormones may be out of whack. The fourth sign that there's something going on with your hormones is that you're experiencing mood swings. or anxiety or depression, right? Could be any of those things. And this is also a big one because sometimes we just write those off as a normal part of being a woman, right? How many times have you said yourself, right? Oh, I'm just feeling so hormonal today. We think it's just something that we have to deal with. But the reality is that if you're experiencing severe mood swings or severe anxiety or severe depression, it is a sign that something is not working right with your hormones. And that's because they play a huge role in regulating your mood and emotions. When your hormones are out of balance, it has an impact on serotonin and dopamine, which are the feel good chemicals in your brain. And it causes you to have too much cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and that leads to anxiety and depression. So if you're struggling with those things, with mood swings or anxiety or depression, then that is another big sign that your hormones are out of whack. And then finally, the fifth big sign that your hormones are out of whack is that you're experiencing hormonal symptoms, right? Things that we know are related to hormones, things like irregular periods, hot flashes, night sweats, PMS. And this is important to pay attention to too, because again, we often write those things off as just a normal part of being a woman or that there's something we just have to deal with. But it doesn't need to be that bad, right? If you're experiencing a lot of those symptoms, it is actually a sign that something's not quite right. And because all of those things are signs that your hormones are changing and are fluctuating and that they may be out of balance. And it has a big impact on your periods or causing you to have PMS. And it can also cause you to have hot flashes and night sweats and all of those other things, right? The trouble sleeping, the fatigue. So if you are experiencing a lot of those typical hormonal symptoms, then that is a big sign that your hormones are out of whack and you need to get them back in balance. So those are the 5 most common signs that your hormones may be out of whack. And if you're anything like me, then you're probably sitting there nodding your head because I have literally experienced all of these things at one time or another. And the good news is that there is a lot that you can do to start healing your hormones and getting your body back in balance. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, right? So understand that, right? You don't just like flip a switch and get everything working exactly the way it should. It takes time. But with time and patience, you can start to see some real changes in your body and how you feel. But the first step is just being aware of the signs and understanding that they're not normal, right? It's not something that you just have to deal with. It's a sign that something is not quite right with your body and that something is out of whack. And that's a good thing because then it means there's something you can actually do about it. So, with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that you can start doing to heal your hormones and get your body back in balance. These are all things that I have personally done and that I know have made a big difference for me and so many other women. So, let's dive in. The first and probably most important thing that you can do to start healing your hormones is to change your diet. And I know that probably sounds a little bit obvious, but what you eat plays the most significant role in keeping your hormones in check. It is by far the most important thing that you can do. Like, I'm going to list other things, but this is far and above number one. It's basically giving your body the right kind of fuel to keep everything running smoothly. Because the reality is that for most of us, the standard American diet is not doing us any favors when it comes to hormones. All the processed foods and the sugar and the vegetable oils that we eat on a regular basis are wreaking havoc on our hormonal system and causing all sorts of imbalances. So the first step is you got to cut out the crap. Start eating a diet that is rich in whole, unprocessed foods. But close behind it then is to break the sugar addiction. You have to cut out sugar and carbohydrates for your body to start healing and for your hormones to start regulating themselves again. But beyond that, eating healthy protein, yes, especially red meat, helps to stabilize your blood sugar levels, which in turn keeps your insulin in balance. Oily fish, which is rich in healthy fats, things like salmon, can help reduce inflammation and support your hormonal health. And healthy fats like avocados and nuts and olive oil are fantastic for hormone production because they provide the building blocks that your body needs. The important thing to remember is that everything that goes into your body counts, either to help your hormones or to disrupt them. So eating isn't just about filling your belly. It's also about making sure that everything that you're eating is going to help support your hormones and support your body in the best way possible. And I know that can feel a little overwhelming, right? Especially if you're just used to eating whatever you eat, and that includes a lot of processed foods. So my best advice is to take it one step at a time. Start by cutting out the most obvious offenders, things like sugar and vegetable oil, right? Then start adding in more nutrient dense foods like leafy greens, healthy fats, high quality protein. Don't be afraid to experiment with new foods and new recipes. Eating healthy should be delicious and fun. And if you need a little extra help with this, then our TAS program really is a great option. In fact, it's the best option. It's literally designed to specifically to help women over 40 not just lose weight, but to actually balance your hormones, reverse insulin resistance, and heal your gut. Not only that, it will help you change your relationship with food in a way that's sustainable for the long term. But whether you decide to join TAS or not, changing your diet is definitely the first and far most important step that you can take to start healing your hormones. There really is nothing more crucial that you can do if you want to get your hormones back in balance. There's not doing that. It doesn't matter what else you try if you're not going to change the way that you eat. But that doesn't mean there aren't a few other things, right? So the second thing that you can do to start healing your hormones is to reduce your stress. And that probably sounds way easier said than done, right? Especially in this day and age when we're all so busy and overwhelmed. But the reality is that stress has a huge, huge impact on your hormones also, right? And it's something that can really throw your whole system out of whack if you're not careful and if you're not thinking about it. And that's because when you're stressed, your body is producing this hormone called cortisol, which is referred to as the stress hormone. And while a little bit of cortisol is totally normal and healthy, when you are constantly stressed and chronically stressed, your body is producing way too much of it all the time, and that has a big impact on your other hormones. And that can cause your metabolism to slow down. It will lead to weight gain, especially in your midsection. It will throw off all of your other hormones like your estrogen and your progesterone all out of balance. And so for a lot of women, that's what causes a lot of the other symptoms we talked about, things like fatigue and mood swings and PMS. So if you're serious about healing your hormones, then you really do have to find a way to reduce your stress. And like I said, I know it's easier said than done, but there are lots of little things that you can do to start managing your stress better. Things like practicing mindfulness and meditation and getting enough sleep and prioritizing self-care, right? Those little things that we hear all the time, but actually making them a priority. So that's the second thing, you got to reduce your stress. So the third thing you can do to start healing your hormones is to get more exercise. And that probably sounds a little bit obvious too, right? But the truth is that regular exercise has a huge impact on your hormonal health because when you exercise, your body releases endorphins, which are feel-good hormones that help to reduce stress and to boost your mood. And that helps to regulate your insulin levels and support proper hormone production. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy or extreme, right? When I talk about exercising regularly, I'm not talking about like killing yourself at the gym. In fact, it actually shouldn't be something crazy or extreme like that because that will only stress your body and raise your cortisol, which is the opposite effect of what you want to happen. I'm talking about things like walking regularly, like in a beautiful place, right? Going to a park every day and walking around or hiking or doing some gentle yoga or walking along the beach, just gentle things that are designed to get your body moving, but also to help reduce stress. The key is to find something that you actually enjoy and can stick with on a regular basis. So getting more exercise, that's the third thing. The fourth thing that you can do to start healing your hormones is to prioritize getting enough quality sleep. And I know that's a hard one. It's a hard one for me. I really struggle with getting enough sleep. And I know I'm not alone in this, right? This is for many women, especially if you're going through menopause. Sleep is elusive, but the reality is that the lack of sleep or poor quality sleep has a major impact on your hormonal balance. When you're not getting enough sleep, it's disrupting your body's natural hormone production, and it's leading to those imbalances that are causing all the other symptoms like weight gain and mood swings and low energy. And so quality sleep is like the golden ticket, right? The golden ticket to managing stress. It's the golden ticket to keeping your hormones happy. So really, really try to get at least 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep per night, which again, I know is easier said than done, but there are actually a lot of things that you can do to get better sleep. I've even recorded a whole podcast episode with tips, so go listen to that one after this one if you need some more ideas. So to wrap it all up, all these issues that you're currently experiencing, the things like fatigue and weight gain and pain and inflammation and skin issues, all of them are probably very closely related to hormonal imbalance. And if that is something that you are struggling with right now, then please know that there is something you can do about it, right? Because while hormonal imbalance is very common, especially as we get older, it doesn't mean it's normal. And it doesn't mean that there's nothing that you can do. There's actually so much that you can do. Change your diet. Number one, far and away, number one thing is to change your diet. But then also eliminate stress, get more exercise, get more sleep. Simple things that become even more important as we get older. So I guess that means the only question is, what are you going to do about it? All right, guys, that is everything that I have for this episode. I hope it was helpful to you. And if it was, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you can be notified of future episodes. If you feel so inclined, go leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you like to listen. Share it with anyone you think would find it useful. And then I will see you back here for another new episode very soon.